I know I know a lot of the providers here have recently been contacted through our audit process about errors they've been making with attendance, or will soon be contacted as those audits continue. So we want to make sure that you have all of the information you need to complete the process correctly going forward, especially in light of all the recent news. Consistent and accurate attendance records are essential for program compliance, and that is why we are here today. So on today's agenda, we will talk about attendance and absences, anniversary dates, provider closures, submitting attendance and grace periods, backup attendance requirements, auditing and fraud, and then just a reminder about your 1099s for 2025 taxes. So we do have a very big crowd here again today, which is wonderful, and a very full agenda. So we are going to jump in. Um, as Kelsey mentioned, you can drop your questions into the Q&A anytime during the presentation, or you can wait until the end. A lot of times those questions do get answered as we go through slides, and so don't want you to miss anything. So we will allow that time at the end to make sure that those things get answered. We are now 18 months into pay by enrollment, so it is very important that providers understand all of these policies and are recording attendance and closures correctly. So starting with our full-time vouchers, parents still have the option of a full-time voucher regardless of their schedule. So full-time vouchers are created for families that are enrolled 3 or more days a week. If children are enrolled full-time, each time they miss a day, whether that is pre-planned or not, that should be marked as an absence. If children are enrolled full-time but miss the same day every week, then that can be marked as an off day. So if they are only expected to attend Monday through Thursday, they never attend on Fridays, then Friday can be marked as an off day. That day is still paid, but does not count against the 40-day absence total. But if a child is expected to attend Monday through Friday, then every time they miss a day for any reason, that should be marked as an absence. Those should not be marked as off days. So a child that attends Monday through Friday should never have an off day marked if that's their expected attendance. School age children that attend before and after school and have a school age voucher, then they are considered full-time vouchers, just like a school break voucher. But that school break voucher, if it is at least 1 week long, is labeled as school other and has a higher rate. Those are both considered full-time vouchers for those children. And just to note, there is no additional payment made for just a single day off of school, so that it does not revert to the school other rate until they have a break that's at least a full week in length. Oops, sorry. Moving on to children's attendance codes. We still see a lot of mistakes here, so I'm going to go over this one again. So P is what you will automatically see for present in the provider portal, if that is where you are doing your attendance, and it will show that P Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sundays are marked as off days for providers, and that is only because about 98% of our providers do not operate on the weekends. So that's just the default for those days. Children do have to be present for some part of the day in order to be marked present for that day. So they need to be there for at least a meal or an activity. They cannot be signed in and then immediately signed out and still marked as present. So make sure that they are attending for some part of the day if you are going to keep them marked as present. If they are not present, then the provider needs to go in and update that to reflect either an absence if they were expected to attend that day, or an off day if it is not one of their enrolled days. Absences should be used anytime a child is regularly scheduled to attend but was not in attendance at all for that day. Again, whether that's pre-planned or not. So that can be for vacations, sick days, emergencies, etc. We expect children to miss days, to not attend every single day all year long. So that is why they are allowed up to 40 absences across the providers that they attend in that enrollment year. Keep in mind that means if a child changes providers, they will bring those previous absences with them. So it is important that you are checking their absences in the provider portal. So if a child is new to you but already had 30 absences at their previous provider, they will only have 10 absences remaining through that enrollment year. So it's important that you know that. Providers are still paid for absences until a child reaches their 40th absence. Once they reach their 40th absence, the vouchers will terminate at the end of that week. The system cannot see absences until the attendance is actually submitted. So if you are not submitting every 2 weeks, this termination may be backdated to that 40th absence. So make sure you are getting that attendance in on a regular basis. Parents are responsible for any care used after the termination date. So if you see a child nearing their 40th absence, that's something to be aware of as you're checking that in the system. Off days are only used when a child is not regularly scheduled to attend. So, for example, a part time child that is only enrolled 2 days a week will have multiple off days for that week. You will typically not have off days for full time children unless they are missing the same days each week. Off days, again, do not count against that excessive absence total, but you are still paid for them. So off days should never be used to indicate a child that is no longer attending your program. That is going to result in an improper payment. If you are using a system like Brightwheel, and you do not mark any absence or attendance for that day, it will be recorded as an off day. So make sure before you submit your attendance, that is what you intend for that day to be marked. If you forget to mark an absence or attendance for that day, it's going to be an off day, which could be incorrect attendance. And then our note here says if just a classroom is closed, but not your entire program, then those children should be marked as off days, not absences. So, for example, if there is a 2-hour delay and you have children that only attend a morning program and they are not given the opportunity to attend that day because of that delay, but all of your other children are still going to be coming in the afternoon, then those morning children can be marked as off days, and the rest of the children would be marked their regular absence or presence. So we want to make sure that parents are not being penalized with an absence if they're not given the opportunity to attend. Same thing if just a particular classroom is closed, but the program itself is open that day. So if you are not taking infants that day for a particular reason, but the rest of your program is open and all the other children attend, those infants can be marked as an off day, and then regular attendance would apply to all of your other children. You should not be marking full weeks of off days. This indicates that vouchers may be set incorrectly, so you should be reaching out immediately to have those vouchers corrected before any improper payments are made. If you're reporting a non-attending or non-enrolled child within 5 days, as required in the policy, there is plenty of time to adjust your vouchers before an improper payment is made. We do pay 3 weeks in arrears, so that gives us time to get those vouchers adjusted before there are any improper payments. And then just as a reminder, you should be reporting to eligibility on the roster cleanup form when a child disenrolls or stops attending your program. If they are due to start and their start date changes, or if they have gaps in service when they would not need vouchers, for example, summer break. We want to make sure that all of those things get reported so that the vouchers can be adjusted correctly. If a parent would like to have a gap in service, that should be discussed with their provider. If there is no voucher set, then we do not make payments during that time, and providers are not required to hold a spot without payment. So a parent may choose to use their absences if it is a short gap, just to ensure that the provider is paid and their spot is held, as long as they're not going to exceed their 40 allowed absences. But this should be confirmed with the parent before using. So we want to make sure that there is a conversation happening between parent and provider to say, I'd like to have this gap where I don't have any vouchers. I don't have to use my absences. But if that results in no payment, then, what's going to happen? And then once you submit your attendance, it is locked for you making any updates. So if you discover there is an error on your attendance, you should reach out to your policy consultant immediately. Changes can still be made by the state if they are needed before that payment is made, but errors can only be corrected for 60 days. So if there is a payment made and we need to adjust something in the past, make sure you are checking that on a regular basis and taking action right away. That's very important. So as I mentioned, children are allowed 40 occasional absences in an enrollment year. The enrollment year starts on their anniversary date and then ends on their anniversary date. So those can be found on the My Vouchers page in your portal. Parents and providers will receive notices after a child has missed 10 days, then again at 20, 30, and 35 days. And then, of course, you would get a notice if their case is terminated for 40 absences. Providers are still paid for those occasional absences, so please make sure that you are marking those absences correctly. This would not include multiple weeks in a row that are marked as absences or off days if a child is no longer attending your program. So make sure that you are reporting a non-attending child within 5 business days as specified in the policy. Do not wait. Those do result in those improper payments that have to be recovered. Vouchers do not cover a child's 2-week notice. So you will not be paid for absences listed past their last day attended. So when you're filling out your roster cleanup and it's asking for the last day, know that if they stopped attending, whether the parent notified you or not, it is not going to cover that 2 weeks notice. And then, as I mentioned, absences do reset on the child's anniversary date, but not until the provider submits the attendance period that has that anniversary date in it. So don't hold off on submitting your attendance thinking you're going to wait for that to reset, because it's never going to reset until that period is submitted, and then it can be calculated within the system. Anniversary dates may be different for every child, even in the same family, and they do not always match their reauthorization date. So don't just assume that the anniversary date and the reauthorization date are the same. Make sure you are checking that in the portal so that you are aware of when that anniversary date is. And then, as I mentioned, absences do count across all vouchers and all providers within that enrollment year. It is not done by calendar year. So that is that enrollment year that starts on that anniversary date. Every once in a while, we will see one that does not reset correctly. So if you ever see that and you have submitted that attendance period, please notify your policy consultant and they can take necessary steps to get that corrected for you. Moving on to provider closures. Providers can enter, change, or delete closure dates in the past as long as the service period has not been submitted, or you can do those in the future. So you're welcome to do them as you go along, or you can set those up in advance as well. Once the service period has been submitted, it is locked, so you cannot make any further changes. So make sure you are checking those before you hit submit on that 2-week period. You can enter future dates for the full current calendar year as well as the first quarter of the following year. So right now you are able to enter all of 2026 and through the end of March 2027 if you choose. Closures must be entered in PPP or the provider portal using the closures tab. So even if you are using a CCMS like Brightwheel or Playground or ELV, you will not enter your absences there. You have to enter those in the portal. And then those will reflect in your attendance. No attendance is required if you've marked a closure for that day. So if you're in the portal, you will see a red bar across that entire day indicating that there is a closure there. So again, this is not marked on the attendance screen. That is something we still get a lot of questions on. When you are in that attendance screen, you are only going to see options for present, absent, and off day. If your program, your entire program is closed for that day, you have to go into the closures tab and mark that as a paid or a non-paid closures. Make sure that you are not marking closures as off days. This is a common mistake that we see and something our auditors are watching for. So if every child is marked as an off day, then they will know that that program was closed and that should have been marked as a paid or a non-paid closure, and that will need to be corrected. So you may be contacted asking about those days or holidays, the major holidays, if we see that all children were present and that there may have been a closure, then auditors will ask about that as well. So make sure that you are recording all closures, even if your paid closures have been all used. So the two types of closures are paid closures indicated by PC. Providers get 16 paid closures per calendar year. Those reset on January 1st each year, so just got reset. Those are used for any reason a provider is closed. So those could be vacations, sick days, inclement weather days, emergency closures, staff in service, or holidays. They are used when the provider is closed, but still expecting full payment for that. If you are closed for a full week and want to be paid for the full week, you do have to enter 5 paid closures. Providers also have the ability to use non-paid closures, and that is for weeks they do not expect payment. We often see that for like a school program that is closed over Christmas break or spring break and they are not charging families for those weeks, then they could use the non-paid closures. Or if you are out of paid closure days, you still have to record your closures regardless, and those would then be marked as a non-paid closure. If providers select a non-paid closure, the week is prorated based on the number of non-paid days selected, and that is at a rate of 1/5 per day. You do have the ability to use your paid and non-paid closures whenever you choose at your discretion. So you are not required to use paid closures first, but just be reminded that if you do not use all 16, you do not get those credited back, and they do not roll over to the next year. So you do forfeit any remaining paid closures. So that's why we recommend that you use paid closures first if you're not sure how many closures you'll have for that year. And then, as I mentioned, all closures have to be recorded. So even if you have exhausted all 16, we want to make sure those closures are getting recorded. Do not mark them as off days or absences. Do not keep the children marked as present. That is not allowed, and that could result in a repayment or termination from the program because that is considered an intentional program violation. If the program is closed for the day, please make sure this is noted on your backup attendance as well. All programs are required to keep backup attendance, and we will talk about that in just a moment. We have had some questions about why holidays are not automatically marked, and that is because not all providers choose to close for all of the major holidays or even the same holidays. So it is the provider's responsibility to mark those correctly in the portal. So make sure if you have not submitted your holiday closures yet for the end of 2025, that you are doing that, or beginning of 2026, that you are doing that before you hit submit. And again, if you go back and review and realize that you have done something incorrectly and you've already submitted, please reach out to your policy consultant immediately so that we can catch that and get those corrected for you before it goes through audit. So very, very important that you are watching for those. And if you discover a mistake, that you immediately let us know about that. Attendance does have to be submitted every 2 weeks following the attendance period end date. So the deadline is Saturday at midnight before that payment is made. If you fail to submit that period, you will still automatically be paid for the missed period. So we do one grace period if you forget or you're sick or you have problems. But remember, you have that full 2 weeks to submit attendance. So don't wait till the last minute in case there is a problem and you are not able to get that submitted. Make sure you start early. And then if you do receive an error message through your CCMS, know that that must be cleared up before the attendance submission will go through. So if you get any kind of message about missing child IDs or that there are blanks in your attendance or there are duplicates or any of those kind of messages, even if you hit that submit button, it is not going to go through for payment. So make sure you clear the errors and then resubmit. You can also verify that your attendance has been submitted by logging on to the provider portal and looking under the red toolbar at the far right. There is a field there that says submission date and time. If it is blank, then your submission has not gone through for payment. So whether you are submitting through the portal or through your CCMS, once you have successfully submitted that, it will populate a date and time. So that's a great way to always go back and make sure that you have submitted. As I mentioned, that first missed period is a grace payment, so we will pay you regardless. But you do have to go back and submit that period. So you want to make sure that you are still going back, checking that you have all the attendance updated correctly, and that you are still hitting submit. And then if you miss 2 or more attendance submissions in a row, you will not receive a payment until you have submitted all of your periods. Keep in mind that if you are missing attendance, all admins that are listed in iLead will be getting a daily reminder to submit attendance. These start 5 days prior to when that submission is due, and they will continue every day until the attendance is submitted. So if you are getting a message that says that you need to submit attendance, a lot of providers will say, I'm getting that message, but I know that I submitted. If you're getting that message, it means it is missing. So you definitely want to go in and check that. It is important that you are also checking to make sure you do not have any vouchers assigned that are not supposed to be. Providers a lot of times will just stop submitting attendance because they think there's an error. We also see that when a program is closed, providers just stop submitting attendance. This prevents a program from ever being able to submit attendance again or get a payment again. So if you have some problem, make sure you are reaching out to your policy consultant immediately. Let them know what the problem is so they can help you get that corrected and you can get that attendance submitted on time. All providers have access to their payment details through Tyler Tech. So if you want to get in there, you can see which children you were paid for, which weeks, any adjustments that were made. They are all listed individually on those payment details. If you do not know how to access those details, please reach out to your policy consultant. It is very important that you're able to reconcile your payments, make sure you're getting the correct amounts for each child, and if there are any issues, that you're addressing those within a time that we can still get those corrected for you. Moving on to backup attendance, as I mentioned earlier, backup attendance is required to be kept by all providers. So in addition to what is submitted in the portal for voucher payments, we want to make sure that you have a backup method. This can be done through a CCMS like Brightwheel, Playground, or ELV, if the parent is the one that is doing the check-ins and check-outs. If they are not, if your teachers and your program staff are the ones that are doing that, then that does not suffice as a backup method. You could also use another electronic tracking system. So if it's not one of our approved CCMS vendors, or you have some system that you do on your computer, those are fine. Or you could use paper attendance. If a parent is the one using the CCMS, then that is considered your backup method and nothing else is required. If they are not, or you are using one of the other methods, then we want to make sure that parents are signing those at least weekly. If a program is providing transportation, so a child comes directly from school to the child care, or from the child care back to home, and the staff is the one who needs to do those check-ins and check-outs, again, we want to make sure that the parents are still verifying that at least weekly. That can be from an electronic signature that is sent out to them, or an actual paper signature. So either of those will suffice. Keep in mind your CCMS does track who is checking the child in and out. So if that is requested by audit and they see that those are being done by your staff, then we want to make sure that you have the signatures as well. Backup attendance is required for both licensing and audit purposes, and providers are expected to maintain those records for at least 3 years. If you were not previously keeping a backup method, please do not falsify those records at this point. You do need to just start doing it immediately. So we've had a lot of questions about, having parents go back 18 months and try to get those records. We do not want you to do that. So you would just need to explain that you were not keeping it, but you are keeping it now, and then explain, how that is being done. If you are using paper attendance, that must include the child's first and last name, the date that they attended, time in and time out, and then parent signatures or initials for the days. Like I said, at least weekly, showing that they agree with that attendance. So make sure that all of the details are present. We do want those time in and time outs because we want to make sure that children were present when you said they were. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we did have some issues where they said, children walked in the door, walked out, they were counted present for the day. Those time in and time outs would be reviewed. So we want to make sure that that is showing on your attendance. Backup attendance must match what's entered in the portal for payment. If those do not match, then there is a chance that you would have a repayment. You could have a negative action taken against your license, or you could lose the ability to ever accept vouchers in the future. So very serious. We want to make sure that you have all of the records that you need to verify your attendance. Backup attendance is needed to allow families to see what the provider is submitting for their attendance and absence. It helps resolve any disputes that may arise about the number of absences claimed or days attended. It helps verify the information that is entered into the portal in case you make a mistake. So if you do think that there was a mistake and you need to go back and verify, you have those backup records. And then this is the family's responsibility for receiving the benefit of their vouchers. Now that they're not swiping, they still need to be responsible for making sure that their child is checked in accurately. So whether they're using that CCMS system or they're verifying in another way, we want to make sure that they know that their child is being checked in and out accurately. So this is something that our auditors are looking for. They are monitoring all attendance data that is submitted through the portal. So as I mentioned earlier, many of you have already been contacted through the audit process or maybe in the very near future as those continue. So there's hundreds of providers that are being checked all the time. If they have a question about attendance that was submitted in the portal, they will request those backup methods. So please make sure that you are keeping those. Again, if you were not keeping them, please start immediately to do that. We are seeing a lot of mistakes from 2025. So you may want to go back, review your attendance, make sure that you have all of your closures recorded correctly. If you were not recording closures, let us know. Reach out to your policy consultant. They can put in a ticket and make those corrections. If you were not marking absences and off days correctly, check that. Reach out to your policy consultant if you find any errors there. We want to make sure that everything agrees with what you are recording, especially with the new federal regulations in place. And make sure you are stressing to your parents how important backup attendance is and that it is their responsibility to be checking in and out. You have the right to refuse care if they are not doing that correctly. This backup method is to protect you and your business. So we want to make sure that you are sharing that responsibility with your families and that they understand that you are very serious about it. If an error is found through our audit process and information is requested and you do not respond. So they will ask you to provide a backup method or provide a list of your closures, those kind of things, and you do not respond, then a corrective action plan will be issued for your program. Your attendance will be continue to be monitored. And if you continue to submit incorrectly, you would be issued a repayment for all state funds. And as I mentioned, may have a negative action taken against your license or lose the ability to accept vouchers in the future. We are 18 months into pay by enrollment. So at this point, providers are expected to understand and follow all of the policies and procedures as they are laid out now. There are many resources that are available to you if you need them. So just keep in mind, this is your responsibility. If you have a change in staff or a change in admins, it is also your responsibility to make sure that they understand all of the policies and procedures and continue to do that correctly. So if they need any information or training, that is available to you and to them, and you want to make sure that you get that for them. It is fraud, or what we refer to as an IPV, or an intentional program violation, to falsify attendance records or not record correctly. So making sure that you are recording absences, off days, and closures correctly is your responsibility. We understand that mistakes may happen. So if that is the case, making sure that you are notifying the state and returning any payments immediately that should not have happened, we will be able to take steps to correct those errors. And then lastly, just another note, all providers that received any payment from the state, so that could be voucher payments from CCDF or On My Way, PTQ incentives, or grant payments, will receive a 1099 for your taxes. These will be provided by Tyler Technologies. They are our payment vendor, and they will be mailed by the end of January. So you should be receiving those very soon. And then if you, for some reason, do not receive that around that first week in February, please reach out and we'll see about getting a copy to you. If you still need a 1099 from a previous year, please reach out to your policy consultant and they will give you instructions on how to get those previous years. I know some people file for extensions and things like that, and so you may need something other than 2025. And then just finishing up here with our OE COSL childcare support line, 1-800-299-1627. If you need any additional support, you may reach out to them, or as I mentioned, you may reach out to your policy consultants. Every provider has a policy consultant assigned to their county. They are your resource team. They are there to help you, so please let them know if you need them, if you have questions, if you have problems, if you are struggling with anything at the eligibility office, they are your best resource. So please reach out to your policy consultants. And that concludes the presentation part. We will, of course, stay on and take any questions that anyone has, or my policy consultants that are in the chat. If there's anything that you need to call out that we need to address, please feel free to do so, and I can talk through those as well.
Shannon, in the chat or in the Q&A, there were lots of questions in regards to when using a CCMS and inputting PC or NP days. They say that they can't see them on their end and they're getting errors when submitting.
So as long as you make sure that your closures are in the portal, which you will be able to see there, then once you submit your attendance for those days, those will be updated to closures. So you are correct. You will not be able to see that in your CCMS. You will need to verify that that is correctly recorded in the provider portal, and then make sure that there is attendance data in for that day. So you will need to, enter present or something in for those days. Do not mark them as absences. We want to make sure there's no issues there. But those closures will override anything that is there once you submit that, and you will be able to see those in the portal. Great question. Thanks, Andrea. I see another question here that I was going to address about the waiting list. Children who already have a sibling on the program are still going on the waiting list. So they are not enrolled immediately or given priority. So they are still going on the waiting list in the order that they were received, so that families get services in the order they applied. I also see another question here from Jenny. If you have a child that is typically always out on a Friday and they are marked as off days, but occasionally they need care on that Friday, it is absolutely fine to mark them as present for those days. So they definitely can have additional days that they attend, even if that's not one of their normal days that are normally marked as off days. I know there were some questions in the previous webinar about school systems. This is required for school systems as well. So if you are using another system like PowerSchool or ProCare, and the parents are not the ones that are doing those check-ins and check-outs, yes, you will still need parent signatures. If you are providing transportation, any of those things. So again, those can be written or electronic signatures, but we have to have backup attendance for all programs. We want to make sure that there is verification that comes from someone other than just program staff, especially in light of everything that is going on with other states and things like that. We have to have parent verification. I also want to address a question in the Q&A about online training to demonstrate how to enter attendance. We do have guides for that walk you through step by step. So your policy consultant can definitely get that information to you, and you can see how to do that if you are talking about the portal. If you are asking about a training for a CCMS, you can reach out to your CCMS vendor, and they can offer that for you as well. So not sure which, but we do have either quick reference guides that walk you through step by step, or those demos for your CCMS. If you are a program that has a child care worker that you have put a referral in for, they are still on the waiting list. So they are not being fast tracked at this point. So I did see some questions in the chat about that. So they will be contacted once there is funding available to enroll them. So just know that they are going on the waiting list at this time. Lots of questions still coming in. That's great. Glad you're all here and getting your questions answered. Yes, those children who come in after school are signed in by a staff member and then picked up later by their parents. We want to make sure that we are getting signatures and they are verifying those days.
Shannon, can you go over the sign in and sign out process? There seems to still be a lot of questions and confusion about it, whether if a child arrives on the bus or leaves on the bus, and about parent signatures and things like that.
Sure. So again, we just want to make sure that on at least a weekly basis, those are verified by your parents. So if it is not a parent that is doing the actual sign in and sign out for any reason, then we want to make sure that there is either an electronic signature or a handwritten signature from parents on a weekly basis to verify the attendance that has been entered by the staff for the whole week. So however you choose to do that, that will work if the parent is not the one physically signing their child in and out each time. And again, if you were not doing this properly in the past, please do not go back and try to recreate things that are in the past. I don't know about most of you, but I don't remember what I was doing last week or last month or last year. So do not try to go back and falsify that. Start now and make sure that you are doing it correctly going forward. Oh, this is a great question about a $1 reimbursement. And that is because of a copay. So copays are based on a family's income. They are assigned at a family level, and then they are distributed typically to the youngest child in the family, because typically that child is going to be in care the longest and also have the highest charges. If the copay is more than what the state would reimburse for that child, then we do leave a $1 placeholder there, so that that child still has a voucher, but then the remaining copay goes to the next youngest sibling. So it is possible for the older children to have a higher reimbursement rate, or that the state pays more, and that is because of that copay being assigned there. So again, it's assigned at a family level based on the gross monthly income, and that is the family's portion that they have to pay. So it is entirely possible that one or more children may have just a $1 reimbursement rate, and that's just so that they're not kicked off that voucher because that parent is paying in full for them based on the copay. So hopefully that answers that question. I know it's a little bit hard to understand sometimes, but families have an obligation to pay both their copay and any overages that they might have, which is the difference between our reimbursement rate and your charges. I see another question in here, missed the response. If a family is the one checking their child in and out daily on your CCMS, then you do not need to have another backup method, and you do not need to have them sign. So if we pull your backup from your CCMS, it would tell us the parent is the one that is signing in and out, and that is perfectly fine. If we pull your backup method and it shows your staff or your teachers are the ones that are doing all of the sign-ins and sign outs on Brightwheel or whatever your CCMS system is, then they will have to have a signature there. Allie, I saw your question about the difference between a copay and overage. I just answered that, so hopefully that answers your question. Copay is based on the family's monthly income that is supplied at the time of reauthorization, and that is their portion. Overage is the difference between what the state reimbursement rate is and the provider's actual charges. So if we are not reimbursing your full charges, then you can still charge that difference to the families. They may have a copay and an overage. They may have a copay or an overage. They may not have either. So it's possible that they have any combination of those. So you want to make sure you're checking your vouchers. If you are using a CCMS that is not one of the 3 approved vendors, then you will need to make sure that your parents are the ones that are signing in and signing out on that attendance, or that they are signing those. If your voucher reimbursement covers your full amount, then you can choose to waive any of the amounts that are saying that the parents owe. So that is up to you and your business policies. You just want to make sure that you are consistently applying those across all families. If they are behind on a copay, not an overage, but if they are behind on a copay, the policy says that you need to report that to your eligibility office within the first 30 days. If they do not become current on that copay within the 10 days that they are given on their notice or make payment arrangements with you, then their vouchers can terminate. So please make sure that you are reporting that right away. Do not wait a long time and let that balance build up before you report those non-paid copays. And then remember, our 3 approved CCMS vendors are Brightwheel, Playground, and Early Learning Ventures, or ELV. If you are using any of those, then you have the ability to transmit that information directly from your CCMS into the portal. If you are using another CCMS system that is not one of the 3 approved, then you can still use that as your backup, but you would not be able to transmit that information over to the portal. Looks like we have no open questions in our Q&A right now. Can you collect copays even if it exceeds your weekly rates? That is yes, absolutely. That is their responsibility based on their income. And if your reimbursement is more than what your charges are, those fees can be used, for other things within your program. My policy consultants that are in the chat have done a fantastic job getting all of those questions answered. We will review those. If anything pops up, I will make sure that we get that out to you. We did record this, so again, we will get that posted on the website. We will also send out a copy of the slides, as well as some of the quick reference guides, the map for your policy consultant, so that you can find out who that is and work with them. We'll get all of that information sent out to everyone who registered for today's session. If a family gets their voucher terminated for non-payment, then they will have to reapply for the waiting list. So if they pay within the time period that is on the notice that they are given, then they would just retain vouchers and continue with you as normal. But if those vouchers are terminated, then they would have the opportunity to appeal within 10 days, and then also they would need to reapply if that appeal is denied. Okay, one more time. Anytime a parent is not the one that is signing in and out for their child, then a parent will have to initial that or sign that at least once a week. So as long as the parent sees the entire week of attendance and verifies that information, that will work as your backup. I see a question about how to contact Andrea, so we'll make sure that you get that information as well. She is our senior policy consultant up in the Lake and LaPorte area, so she can make sure that you get her information to be able to reach out. Parents do not have to add times to their check-ins if you are already putting those times in there. What parents are doing is verifying that information. So if they don't agree, then you guys may need to correct something. But if they can see all the days and times their children were signed in and marked absent, then they can just sign once to verify all of that information. Shalonda, I see your question. You can reach out to any of the 3 vendors to still get a subscription to one of the CCMS systems that integrates with the portal. Those are still being offered at a state discounted rate to anyone who wants to sign up for one of those. So we can definitely get you more information if you need it. But those are still being offered at that discounted rate if you reach out to them and let them know that you're in Indiana and want to take advantage of that. All right, got just a couple minutes left here. I appreciate everyone being here. If there are any last minute questions, please go ahead and get those in. But if you don't have any additional questions, then have a wonderful rest of your day. I will talk to everyone very soon.